Hello and welcome. I'm Peasant, and as I understand it, you're someone else. Today, we're going to be looking at France 2, so mid-difficulty Overexplain. I'm going to do my best to try and balance the commentary so that it's as beginner-friendly as possible. That's easier said than done sometimes. But we're looking at France 2, so luckily we have to consider all these other rules that Eric added in a fit of deliberately weaving in imperfection to the game, which is, a relief. Gives other game designers some kind of optimism. Anyway, what is France? I don't know what France is, but in this game, they consist of this collection of rules. Now, at France 2, we've got the sprawling plantations, lost conditions. So there's a limit of 7 towns per player. Invaders win if you ever cannot place a town. So in practice, that eighth town on the map means you lose. This is, although despite all of these different rules here, this is essentially the thing here. So if you just wanted one tip, for some reason you've clicked on a, I don't know, 30-minute plus video for that tip. The tip is just focus on town destruction, and that'll do it. Anyway, you've also got this escalation, stage 2 escalation of demand for new cash crops. After exploring on each board, pick a land of the shown terrain. If it has buildings, add a blight, otherwise add a town. This escalation is often quite frustrating, and it might even mean that in this run we have a prolonged stage 2 where the game just kind of keeps on limping on. So, that might be something to look forward to. On thematic boards, this often, you don't have a choice about what happens here. So that can be particularly nasty. And there's actually really very little you can do about it because it can parachute in anywhere on the board. So you can't even kind of restrict the interior. Okay, then at level 1, after invaders successfully explore into a land which has no buildings, add an explorer there. At higher difficulties, this can actually mean that you are better off leaving buildings in lands. That's just something to consider. And then slave labor. During setup, put the slave rebellion event under the top 3 cards of the event deck. So that's this little puppy here. In my physical, when I'm playing France physically, I tend to put this face up so that I don't forget about it. I'll do my best not to forget about it in this playthrough, where I'm trying to demonstrate how to play the game. I might still forget anyway. What does it do? Adding a strife to a town. After finishing the event card, draw another one and return this card to the event deck. That doesn't look like it does a lot, though. A strife on a town can save you a blight. Lovely stuff. This is where the magic happens down here. So invaders with strife take a damage per Dahan present and add a Dahan per strife per building this destroys. This can be incredibly nice if you get some way of adding strife. And it will mean that anything that adds strife is more valuable. But note that all you actually need is 2 Dahan in with a town to get yourself a 3 Dahan and a town destruction. It's just remembering in digital that it's going to happen is also somewhat tricky. But wait, there's more to this rule. After invaders, there's a second little bit sneaking in. After invaders build in a land with 2 explorers or more, replace all but 1 explorer there with an equal number of towns. This is pretty nasty, especially when you bear in mind this preceding rule that adds an extra explorer in lands with no buildings. We'll see how this pans out, but this to play around this, you want to use build prevention powers. Now we're going to go with Fangs. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the best spirits against France for a few reasons. I'm not going to completely go into detail on France. We've got base difficulty explains for that, but we've got build prevention and we've got fast damage as well. So we've got kind of 2 ways of dealing with and preventing the build chain. Okay, let's look at the board. Okay, so we've got an opening mountain explore. And we didn't get a choice about where we put our second presence on this map on C, because the starting beast started with our other starting presence, so that's nice. Oh, that's nice. That's a bit of decision making that had been saved there. So we've got these 2 mountain builds, and that's intriguing. So we've got the ability to just straight up prevent a build. That's an interesting way of preventing this city build. But against France, we're actually not that worried about city builds compared to how we feel in other matchups. But that said, we can actually do something about both of these. And we could go with one of there's 2 general paths you want to go down in the opening with Fangs. That said, your whatever card you gain first can completely change that. But let's just imagine you either like to go for these for Tune in the Jungle and Teeth Gleam and this presence here from Animal, and get to use your damage innate turn 1. Or, if you go with Terry's Chase, prey on the builders, then you can go with a kind of build prevent, and like in here, and then a pushing the town explorer from here. That's what the board looks like right now. But first things first, let's look at a power. And what powers you get offered here also can really change your trajectory. If you're given a plant beast, that will make you more consider going plays. If you don't, then you might be more interested in going top track. But yeah, Fangs is actually very flexible. Very flexible indeed. And this is a somewhat rancid collection. I'm not going to lie to you about that anyway. However, this is adding strife, and we are against France, but it's completely off element. I wonder if the Franceness of the situation makes this strife worth adding. Bear in mind, it's a non-optional Dahan push as well, so it's gonna kind of work against. Well, potentially, it's not going to be straightforwardly helping with the rebellion, which of course is going to happen in a while. Okay. Non-obvious. Okay, but these three do at least have plant on them. And this is just some damage, except this requires a sacred site. The way that I play Fangs, which is aggressively converting my presence to beast, means that sacred sites are a rare thing. You could go with the undergrowth, potentially. Could do something. Wilds is actually pretty good against France, preventing that double explore here. Voracious growth is blight removal, which as Fangs is sometimes interesting. And it has coincided with our starting blight, which is also kind of interesting. So this already has a use, even if we only use it once. So corruption, of course, is even more flexible. But we're often broke as Fangs if we're going bottom track. But we haven't really made that decision yet. What I'm trying to drive at here is that there's no clear favourite. Okay, so I think I'm going to go with the Terry's Chase Prey turn 1. So we'll see that in a moment, which leaves a 2 near and a teeth turn next turn. And if one of these had an animal element on it, that would mean that I'd probably be wanting to go bottom track, but that we don't see that option. So I think we might be going... We might just be picking up a card that's very, very flexible. The P-Brain is somewhat befuddled by this selection. I'm going to go with Absorb Corruption. Probably never use it. There you go. Perfect. Okay, and we have a presence place. We can put it in this jungle in here. Some people like to... Actually, I'm going to go top track so that we've actually got guaranteed beast damage next turn. So this animal is now revealed. But we're not going to do it this turn because we don't have the beasts up to deal with this. Oh, and we've also got a presence convert to do. No requirement for a sacred site out of here. So we're going to convert a presence to a beast, which is something I recommend you do constantly. And we'll also note that the two of our start powers need presence adjacent to a jungle for their targeting. So you might want to always just leave a presence in a jungle if that's something you like to forget. I like the jeopardy of potentially forgetting these things. And I also value having beasts in multiple lands. A bit more than I value the security of just leaving presence in jungles. Okay, so in order to use these zero range effects, we're going to actually have to put beasts into these lands and do that in conjunction with Ally of the Beasts. So a bit like Thunder Speaker's ability to move with Dahan, Fangs can move with beasts. And we're going to do that by gathering into land where we have these two beasts and then pushing into both of these. And then we can pray. Oh yeah, and we have to, of course, bring the presence with us. So, of course, we actually have no presence in jungles now. We'll see if I make any targeting errors today. They're not exactly hard to make. Okay, we've got Jungle Explore. So we do have the decision in the slow phase about where to Terrifying Chase into. And notice that we did get the extra Explorer here. So in the build phase, they're going to build 2 towns in here and 2 towns in here. Which is, I don't know, pretty disgusting. So it's interesting because we could push this town into here. And that will actually, weirdly, it will prevent a town build. And that's quite tempting, except it will create a city build. Which, again, we might just not care about. We might just be fine with that. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to push the Explorer into here. Now, we could take a risk on the Ravage and assume that the event card isn't going to boost the damage, but I'm not going to take that. I'm going to definitely make sure that there's no Explorer in here. Oh, not that it's actually optional in this case. Well done, peasant. And we do have Dahan pushes options for here or here. Now, in here it's with disease, so the disease might kill my Dahan, so I'm not into that. But we don't have any actual defend cards, which means that these Dahan are like to just die in here anyway. So I'm going to push them in here for now. And preserve them. Dahan are a bit... They're not exactly reliable a lot of the time, unless you've got Dahan unless you've got defend cards, in which case, very different. Okay, so now we've got this situation here. We've got a Mountain Ravage here, so it's a 3 damage Ravage. We've already got a Beast in there. This is actually something we should be able to do something about. Except, note that we've got 2 of these start cards that need jungle targeting to actually do anything. We can still play them for their elements, but we don't want to leave ourselves in a situation where we don't get to use these, especially placing these early beasts on the board for Fangs are like, well, for any spirit, they're like they might just pay out in a bunch of fear later on, and that's very valuable. Okay, so let's prevent this Ravage by going with the approach of destroying the town. So we're not really preventing the Ravage. And there's no adjacent beasts either, so we can't completely clear the land. But we'll do the next best thing. So we'll do that by putting a presence in here, converting it into a beast. And we'll be able to kill this town in the fast phase and then relocate the beast into here. This is the only adjacent jungle, and then we'll be able to use Teeth Gleam and 2 near the jungle. Okay, you following? We do have another little problem as Fangs, which is that our reclaim costs us energy. So we're sometimes in a position where we just can't reclaim. Not that we want to do that this turn. But just note that the option that just gives you pure energy is pretty valuable, and it can really help you. I often just don't really, I kind of almost pretend this doesn't exist, because I don't like, I just don't like not doing this. But you may not have given yourself all sorts of mental roadblocks to playing the game well. Okay, and then we have builds here and here. So this is going to be a town and a city. This is going to be 2 towns. And note down here, the app has a very handy little tracker for how many towns you've got left. Now, because of my experience of playing against France and the game just ending forever, I'm actually not going to try and rush the early Russia win, because the second stage 2 goes, France will just survive through all of stage 2. And I am actually thinking about my options here, because we've kind of gone a bit top track. That doesn't mean we have to go all the way. The cards we want to play this turn are basically Teeth Gleam and 2 near. If we play those 2, we get to do our innate things, which is pretty good. If we go to 2, another good way to go with Fangs is to go to 2 and then go bottom track. Of course, this jump here from 2 to 2 does nothing. We only need 1 energy on the turn. I think the trouble with going with the power card here is that if we gain an extra energy and we get this energy, we go into next turn with only 1 energy remaining if we play Teeth Gleam 2 near. Which means if we reclaim, we then also are sitting at a 1 energy turn. I think that's okay. I think that's fine. We like to see more cards. Okay, what do we have here? Right, so these 2 at least have animal element, and this one has animal plant. So that immediately makes these of interest. Sky Stretcher Shore is just a very useful card, especially if you might go major powers. But that said, the lack of animal element. That animal element is somewhat less relevant because we've pipped this. However, we've got... Because possibly we're going to get this plant anyway. Yeah, we're getting some non-obvious decisions here. This does have the plant animal, but Call to Tend is not doing a lot for us. And we value, well, especially if we go bottom track, we value the 0 cost of Rain of Blood. Visions of Fiery Doom is only on our Frenzied Assault elements and not on our Beast elements. And again, expensive. I'm going to go with Rain of Blood, but note that it needs a Sacred Site, and I might well forget that this needs a Sacred Site. So, I mean, I won't be able to play it this turn anyway. But cards like this are really might push you towards playing with going for plays, because this 3 fear for 0 energy, and it happily gives you this element. That's doing a lot. I'm going to go Rain of Blood, but we're not playing it this turn. The fact we have Rain of Blood is going to mean that I'm going to start going bottom track. Okay, so in order to stop this from placing Blight, I'm gonna destroy this town in the fast phase. The way we do that, converting one of these presents into a second beast and triggering our damage innate by playing these 2 start cards. But these both need jungle presence to actually do anything. The other nice thing here is that incidentally, I'm going to be able to relocate this presence, which takes it out of the danger zone. To really achieve maximum power as Fangs, you kind of want to convert as many presents as you can bear. Oh, that's a bit gross. I don't think it matters for us, but... Ooh, and here we've got a little bit of a beast investment paying off. Beast Proud, love to see it. So, that's just 3 fear. Great. And we're also going to get to relocate this beast. If they build a city and a town here, that's pretty interesting. I don't think we're going to be able to do anything about... I don't think we're going to be able to completely address this land next turn. But let's just put a beast in there anyway. And do we want to move a presence in? I actually don't think I do want to move a presence in here. Given that next turn this is likely to be a Ravage I can't do anything about. Actually, you know what? I am going to move it in there because we could probably move these 2 presents out with a beast movement if we want. Okay, and then the event is giving us a Dahan. So yeah, hopefully I'm getting the balance of commentary right. Bear in mind that there's a lot more going on in this kind of run than in a 0 difficulty run. I mean, including events. So Strife in a land with Beast, Disease, or Dahan. Now, remember, we're against France, so Strife is a bit more relevant than usual. So... Oh, and another thing to note is that although I was talking about towns here with Small Uprising, the Aid the Uprising portion of the card will work on cities as well. We could Strife this city here, which incidentally sets up if this comes up for a Ravage. And all we need to do is get another Dahan in here, which we might be able to achieve over time. Alternatively, we could make this defend a bit more defendable. I'm going to go all in. All in. Okay, so it was a 1 damage Ravage when the event didn't boost that damage. And France are now just throwing out towns. We need to do something about that. And Wetland Explorer. Okay, so Sand in stage 1 did not show up, and now we're entering stage 2. Right. So, too near the jungle. Does have the ability to destroy an explorer. And remember against France that these extra explorers in here are extra town builds. And that's not... We don't want those. So, now let's look at here. So, we've got 5, 7, 8 damage in here. And we've got 3 beasts already. We could use this to plonk a 4th beast in here. And we could destroy an explorer. The 4th beast could take care of 2 towns, which gets 2 more towns into our pool, which is pretty valuable. We could also then push with this bit here to rescue our presence so that we don't lose it. I think that's pretty worthwhile. This over here, though, is we're not really addressing this. This probably is getting blighted. We do have a blight removal card. The pet all depends on what this stage 2 card is, whether this is a big deal or not. Yeah, I favour getting to 4 beasts in here with Teeth Gleam. So we do have the option to generate fear. I very rarely use this. I think that's more about style than anything else. But early game, the beast is more likely to give you more than the fear. Unless the fear does something very particular, like takes you from terror level 1 to terror level 2 or something. Upgrading existing fear cards is something that I needlessly overvalue. Yes, we could be having a blight in both of these lands, in fact. Even if I do clear out 2 of these towns, we'd still have a 3 damage ravage here. Well, I think this is still a good play. Adding more towns to the pool is pretty good. This here would have been better, though. Actually, I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to undo that little move there. Everyone loves it when people undo in board game playthroughs, I'm told. So that's just going to mean that we only have 1 town build in there instead of 2. Okay, so we're back to growth, and because I've got an energy sitting around, I can just reclaim. Reclaiming is currently the only way that I can guarantee that I can get to use my innate. And I value destroying these towns and relocating my presence. However, note that those 2 cards need the jungle presence, so I'm probably going to want to... Actually, this is a rough town for that, because there's a ravage that we can't do anything about in both of these lands. I still think I'm going to reclaim, and we may gain a minor power that changes things. We're going to have the option of getting to a 3rd play too, and I guess we want a defend card. Let's see what the game gives us. This is a defend card, but it requires a Sacred Sight. Still could be pretty good. In fact, this is the 4 defend we need. So we did go through the maths and decide that there was a city left. We did just change our mind and remove this 2nd explorer here, but 4 defend should be pretty nice. And as Fangs, the more the merrier when it comes to beasts. The slight issue we have is that this costs an energy. So I'm not actually going to be able to afford to play that and Teeth Gleam. The element game can get a bit tricky here. We might even want to go to here instead of going to 3rd play, just to deal with our current energy issues. Not all spirits are like this, but Fangs' tracks are both pretty good. Okay, other options, teeming rivers or friendly fish is lovely. I'm a big fan. But this does a lot more for us, so I think I'm just going to take that, just aware of how long the playthrough is. Okay, so yeah, we do have a Sacred Sight in here. This is going to mean we've got defending and therefore targeting. So if we reveal this plant, then we only need to use 1 of these. We can't afford Teeth Gleam, so we're going to be using 2 near the jungle and Guardian Serpents in order to get that threshold. Okay, but we do need to reveal this plant here. If we put it here, this is ravaging. So this is a key thing for if you are trying to tackle higher difficulties, is knowing to just let a land go here or there. You can't defend everything. So I could put this here and then convert it into a beast, but I'm not going to do that. This is a huge cluster of beasts over here, so it might end up just being... I'm actually going to put it over here and convert this into a beast. This extra beast here, the 5th beast, all it's going to do is destroy an explorer, which I guess is more than it's going to do over here. This is just my piezo instincts kicking in. So we want this defense. So we substituted in Guardian Serpents, where we were originally thinking to play Teeth Gleam. This will also get us another beast, but we should now have the Threshold and the Defend in here. So we're only going to be leaking a single Blight this turn, which is fine. So we Guardian Serpents in here. That's our 4 Defend. We've also got the option of killing cities. Now, against France, that is nowhere... Against most adversaries, killing cities is the thing to do, right? But France is the exception to that rule. Okay, so we actually don't need this to still be a sacred site to get us defend. This defend is here regardless of if we bust up the sacred site. And this is 5 beasts in here is too many beasts. We don't need this many in here. I'm gonna leave a presence in here, but I'm gonna relocate these beasts. Well, I'm gonna relocate 2 beasts. And that's because of the way that beasts kind of function based on events. It's possible... I'm going to move in here so that we might potentially use our Guardian Serpents in here next turn. It's not necessarily the best move. But we're going to leave this presence in here for the sake of 2 to the jungle. Okay, it's alright then is. Town's doing extra damage, we don't care. Prey on the end where each beast destroys an explorer, add a beast to a board without one. And then getting a free Dahan in a jungle or wetland. Okay, pretty good. So that's just prevented that build, by the way. Pretty nice. And generally, that's why I think the general idea of a generally strong approach is to always try and make sure your beasts are in with invaders. They don't really do anything when they're not in with invaders. Okay, game is offering me a strife in a land with or adjacent to Dahan. So there's no point strifing here. This is already defended. We'll just waste our strife. Strife here also not going to make any difference because the 2 damage from the remaining invader. So just by double strifing this is just better than strifing one of those. If we had more fear cards, we might want to put a strife on there to maybe keep this land not blighted. And we've got no builds. But don't worry. It looks like France's game is over, but they're France. They're going to just... This stage 2 is going to drag on no matter how good the board state looks, Peasant said bitterly. So we can add a town in here or a town in here. I actually think this is a good spot maybe for some Terry's Chase. We can clear everything out and then kind of smash it. Because we've got wetland into wetland here, no defend cards, I think we want to just make sure there's no builds happening whatsoever. And this over here, we've actually got no power here. So we don't want to have stuff over here. We don't have targeting, we don't have beasts. We got nothing. Okay, so 2 near the jungle. Let's just use that to prevent a additional town build. How about that? Okay, so this turn, there is a Ravage in here with a count. Oh, I do have a defend card. Okay, never mind. We could, I think... we might be in a position here where we don't reclaim. Horrifying. Pretty much, you always want to place presence. But here is a situation where the cost of not defending here is actually pretty high. Because it's a blight in a blighted land, which is a cascade. Now, Fangs' ranging hunt doesn't work in blighted lands. It's so good against France. So this is a Ravage we do not want. We don't want that at all. And this is our only guaranteed way of doing it. And our way of getting it is to reclaim. This is another reason why, as Fangs, you really value those 0-cost powers, because they're less likely to end up in this situation where you need to gain an energy from one of these other growth options to get this growth option. So this option here gives me the possibility that I'm just going to get another defend card. I think for that reason alone, I'm going to go with this first. And maybe then switch to this, if that's the only way of preventing this cascade. Or, sorry, addressing this cascade. Well, I guess it will be preventing it, but you get what I'm driving towards. So, and we stick with minor powers. We can't afford a major power. sometimes... Okay, that's the solution. Sometimes, as Fangs or as other spirits, you might want to look at an early major, but we're very much looking for useful solutions right now. You might be looking at a major a long time before you're actually in any position to use it. So this is Swarming Wasp is great for Fangs generally, but Lure here, actually, we can use that to gather that town into these sands here, and that means that we have no cascade. Not only that, but it will mean that when the Dahan counterattack, they're preventing this build as well. And we'll have a round without builds, which is lovely. And this is actually just a pretty nice card for Fangs anyway. Again, 0 cost, has plant. You love to see it. Okay, and so that also means that we're not in a situation where we need to reclaim. So we can actually place an additional presence. Yeah, interesting. A lot of the time with Fangs, you're in a position where you're just on one track, and but this is a more multi-track kind of game. Okay, so we use Lure of the Unknown to drag this town into here. That's our only place we can drag it. Lure of the Unknown does require a land with no invaders. And although we're bringing a town over here, that's not enabling another explore, because this land has already shown up. We've already got the stage 2 wetlands card. So moving a town in here is just great. Lovely. We've also got a big old cluster of beasts in here. So, another thing to think about is, damn it, I think we're about to have our slave rebellion, and unfortunately, we might be in for a bit of a bad luck. Yeah, so the multiple strife on that coastal city is not going to... It's not unfortunately going to mean that we get to destroy the city. Do we have a fast Dahan push? We don't have a fast Dahan push. If we could push a third Dahan in here, we might just destroy this in the slave rebellion. But we're not going to have that opportunity. Other thing to think about, Peasant, is that we're going to get this anyway, because we are now at the stage where the slave rebellion card should be this round's event, because it will be underneath these 3 cards. So that actually means there will be a 4th Dahan in here. And if I'd calculated that out more effectively, I would not have... I might have done the same stuff anyway. But so let's just lean into that. Let's see if I'm capable of counting to 3. And we'll let the Dahan convert this town. And so we will attain our laser sharp focus to other things on the board. So I like the idea of just destroying this town, this city. And we've actually almost got a turn where we don't really need to do much at all if the event is going to take care of this land. So I think we might want, because this land's going to be clear, this land already is clear. There's nothing, no builds to prevent, no ravages to address. So I think this is like an infrastructure turn where we just crank the fear. Yeah, I think we're cranking fear. Oh, yeah, interesting which track we go. Now the presence of Rain of Blood does make me think bottom track so that we can just be playing it every turn. We will need a sacred site for that though. Arranging that is not necessarily easy. Let's make a sacred site. Oh yeah, something else to bear in mind is that if we get unlucky with the event, this one damage ravage here after the Dahan Uprising could just kill us. I'm actually tempted to, well, it could just mean a cascade, which could just then kill us, because Tipping Point is a Blighted Island card that's in the deck. That will immediately destroy 3 presence, which will end the game. So with that in mind, I think I might lure the Explorer out of this land, and it is a bit unnecessary. So it's not unnecessary, but it's nice, you know, not to instantly lose. it's a nice, it's nice not losing sometimes. And we could think about removing a blight this turn. We need to remember that the Rain of Blood sacred site. We're going to destroy this city. Push two of the beasts into other useful areas, probably here. Terry's chase is slow, and we're not really, and we don't have our presence all over the board, so I don't think this is worthwhile. Let's go with adding another beast. Yeah. Okay. So this is a somewhat possibly fighting shadows here. Not the spirit, but fighting invisible monsters a little bit. Okay. So we clear this city. We're not gonna gather a presence into this land. Because we want to take these cards, we want to take one of these presents out. Okay, we need a jungle presence, so I'm going to push a beast into here in order to make a sacred site in here, so that Rain of Blood can target this land up here that has 2 buildings, therefore generating an extra fear. We're going to definitely be leaving a beast behind, a presence behind in this jungle, so that we can target Teeth Gleam. Okay, so we're only going to move one presence here. And here is our rebellion. So we get to add a strife in here. The Dahan, we now have a new Dahan. Wonderful. And we'll get another event. That will be back. The game's typically, in my experience, the game is typically over by then. Okay then. So we have Missionary arrive. This is one of the interesting events that comes back if you don't go with the expensive option. I'm almost certainly going to go for the expensive option. Incidentally, we are going to get some beast destroying explorers. And the downside of this particular one is that during the next normal average, cities do extra damage. But in our case here, that just doesn't matter. We like disease, we like fear. It's a matter of whether we can afford it. So we could pay by discarding these 2 cards that have sun elements. By forgetting Guardian Serpents, I don't want to forget my only defend card. I think I can just afford to discard these and just commit to an earlier reclaim than I was planning. That's fine. We've got enough 0-cost cards that do useful things. And we're achieving quite a lot with this. The 2 fear is good, an extra disease is nice. When I first was playing with Branch and Claw, I often would forget that I could discard for elements. I always thought I had to forget. I'm not sure where I got the idea that I couldn't do that from, but it was definitely there. Okay, each player may gather and explore into land with buildings or gather a town into land with cities. Okay, well, we have this one land here with cities. This is also... how many... Yeah, I think that's fine. Bearing in mind especially that this land has blight in, so we can't use our innate in there. Our innate damage, so we probably do want to reduce. Defend 6 on coastlands, no build on coastlands anyway, thanks. Useful. Okay, so no ravage, no build. And so we're gonna get either a blight in this coastal land or a town in this land. The town here is interesting because what it's going to mean is that instead of them building 3 towns in this land next turn, they'll build 2 towns and a city. No, they'll just build a city and 2 towns, which is somewhat preferable to a blight in here, given that for Fangs, the blight in a land is a real problem. So we'll go with that. Okay, so Rain of Blood, doesn't matter where we target it for us. Right here, right now. And then Teeth Gleam in Darkness. If we add a 3rd beast in here this turn, I think that means that if we use our innate, we can gather a 4th beast. And we can convert a presence into a 5th beast. The Ravages next turn, we have no blight likelihood next turn. So I'm prepared to delay my efforts to get to 4 presents to playing around tipping point. Okay. So we do have the option as Fangs to just use Prey on the Builders to prevent nasty multiple town builds. And that might be a good thing to do. It might be. And we are at the point of Reclaim 1. So it's a bit YOLO to push to Reclaim 1. And just see if we gain a useful major power. I'm quite keen to... This would be a pretty useful build to prevent with, and not difficult for us to prevent with Prey. This build here is likely going to be prevented by the disease. The disease isn't guaranteed to prevent a build because the event might kind of say, hey, no, you don't prevent the build. But this is not a horrible build for us. This is only a single town build. And then that will lead to 5 damage Ravage, which we could just deal with. We could just destroy in the fast phase next turn. So maybe we look to... Maybe we could deal with this on a slightly YOLO turn, where we reclaim whatever we like out of here and gain a power card and energy. Reclaim 1 is incredibly valuable. It's unusual that we have such balanced tracks as well, that I have such balanced tracks as Fangs. Yeah, the build prevent here is pretty interesting. Yeah, we're not going to be able to drill with this in the next fast phase. Let's prevent the build in here with Prey. And we'll push a somewhat... It's not exactly YOLO, but it's partly because of the breathing room from this Ravage. Okay, so we're going to need, for Prey, we're going to need to gather a beast into there. And we do have adjacent beasts, that's not a problem, but we're going to need a presence in there first. So we're going to need to use our innate, which probably means we're going to have to target a land adjacent and then push into there. So it can be a bit of a puzzle. So we could just directly target, or we could just drive by this explorer here. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So let's look at yet another minor power. Okay. We've got good old fashioned root biters. Enticing Splendor is Tahan movement. Remember, we are against France, so we might value being able to locate some Tahan somewhere useful for that upcoming rebellion, which will arrive kind of under the 7th card because of the way that this all works. But in my experience, the game's over by then. Okay, so what is our turn looking like? All 0 cost. Root Buyers does have the beast on. The town push could be useful. We're getting a somewhat odd collection here. We actually the Wilds is pretty good against France because you have a bit of it. One of the more interesting things about France is that completely clearing a land then makes them more vulnerable. Then those lands get double explored. I have 2 explorers in them. So preventing the explorer is a little bit more valuable. Do Enticing Splendor though? Let's go with the rack route. Okay, and we do get to keep placing presents, so we're going to go to Reclaim 1. It feels a little bit painful to not be placing a presence for conversion's sake. Okay, so if we play Rain of Blood, we will have the elements to use our innate. Man, we could just be pumping damage with our innate. And we don't have a good way of really leveraging our innate. I think I might just change my mind completely here. Except the trouble is we can't get presence in here. So prey is really doing nothing. We can't clear this land either. Okay, this is what happens when you when you just don't think through your decisions. Okay, I think I am gonna go with this approach here. And we're just gonna go with maxing fear generation, I think, with using Rain of Blood. Now we are gonna need to remember that we want a sacred site in here. Okay. So, by the way of maximizing fear generation is going to be... I'm going to leave this presence here. Is going to be by destroying as many buildings as possible. Actually, wait a second. This strife on here does mean that these guys are going to die. Oh no, they're in the Ravage anyway. So, and the difference between the damage being in the fast phase and the slow phase isn't big because we're not going to get to this stage 3. So I'm going to do damage to everything except the city. I mean, this double strife city is kind of unusual in this regard. And we're going to pile beasts into this other land over here because it's kind of near our other problem land. I'm not even going to use prayer on the builders. So this was a very expensive way of getting a third animal element. Oh god, it's this event. Okay. This is always an awkward event. One of the can really throw a spanner in your plans. So on each board, add a town to land with Dahan. So that's another town from our town count, and they're adding 2 towns in here. Disease is going to still prevent this town build here. Thankfully, there's no one in here. Farmers, this actually against France can just be a loss, and it's one of the reasons why to beat France you really have to hammer the towns at the expense of doing anything else because of events like this. I mean, if we were to use Spurn, we actually would kill this city, which would be interesting. We'd be very close to a Terror 3 win, because there will be just one more city left on the map. Which, if we... Could we deal with that next turn? We don't have any... We've only got adjacent beasts. No beasts actually in there. Though we could potentially use Guardian Serpents to just place more beasts in there. You don't need the Sacred Site for the actual beast placement. So if we... The trouble is, getting the presence in there generally involves using this damage innate, and the damage is kind of in the middle of the innate. So yeah, I don't think we'd be able to set that up. Okay. So if we go with this option, a blight and a land with at least 2 buildings, there actually isn't a land with at least 2 buildings. So that's pretty good. Okay, 2 damage to Dahan, land with buildings and Dahan. Well, we might lose a Dahan in here or here. Here, this city would be gone. So that's fine. Okay, maybe we spurn. And often I think you're kind of forced to spurn against France. So we'll spurn. We'll take a damage in here. We've got to skip that side effect, and the existing damage on that city meant that it died from its injuries. And we did lose a Dahan in there as well. Skip the next one. We'll build wonderful. Thanks, Fear Card. That's pretty good actually, because that was a lot of towns that don't exist anymore. Okay, so in this case, we're adding a town to one of these two lands. Where are you with fear? Okay, so we're 5 fear away from terror level 3, which would be an instant victory because there are no cities on the map. So if we add it, I don't think it's somewhat academic. Let's just add a town in here. And Reign of Blood is going to generate a couple of fear for us. Which means that if we just get the... Yeah, we should be able to generate some fast-phase fear to get the win. So if you're, just in case you're not following, so but when we get 3 more fear, we'll get to terror level 3, and at terror level 3, the lack of cities will mean we win. This is another way of generating another fear. So can we make 2 fast fear? Not directly, actually. Wait a second. Not directly. The only way we like to generate 2 fast fear is actually by fast destroying 2 towns. We're not in a situation where we have multiple towns in together. And we don't have cards that will set up having multiple cards in together. So this run might go on a little while longer. And so I will just push the fear anyway. Because we are in a position where we may just grab a minor power, a fast minor that gives us a fast fear. Okay, we do have our reclaim one available to us now, but I think we're still going to we're just going to full reclaim. And we've got a big old hand of minor powers now, but it's a bit of a weird hand. You could, I think, if you're playing more efficiently, you might well be looking at mages around now. But I'm gonna stick with minor powers. Okay, what do we get here? No direct fast fear, but this extra ranging it can be pretty nice. I've got quite a lot of awkward 0 range cards. Am I in a position where I could... Okay, there is going to be a city build in this mountain, but that's it. This disease should prevent the city build in this desert. So we might be able to win... We might be able to win if we set up to either prevent this build, which isn't impossible. And yeah, maybe we set up to prevent this build and then hopefully win in the slow phase with, I don't know, just a little bit more fear generation. There are no ravages this turn, so drift down doesn't really do anything for us. We could use Scour. Wait a second. Do we have enough air to make Scour fast? No. This is the short answer to that one. So let's just take a utility card and just move on with our lives. That's my suggestion. So actually, this is 3 towns in here from this build, and this is actually a 4th town here. We're very close to just losing, by the way. But we are going to prevent this build. So that's 1 town build dealt with. The way we're going to prevent it is with our ever reliable prey on the builders. But the trouble with that is that's going to mean we're going to need to use our innate to bring our presence over here, which is kind of unfortunate. Or we could use tech, Reaching Grasp. Let's use the tech. Reaching Grasp is actually a more interesting card than it would appear. It does enable a lot of shenanigans. And what's more fun than shenanigans? Fun and effective. Okay, let's put presence in here. So yeah, we're going to use range increased shenanigans to prevent the build in here. So no city build in here. This land is also not destined to create cities either. This disease will prevent the city build here. So now we just need to generate the fear that will take us to Terror 3. Now this is assuming that the fear deck doesn't laugh in our face, and the fear deck might well just laugh in our face. The fear deck does just like to laugh in your face. That's just one of the many things the fear deck likes to do. So yeah, let's just see. The tricky with the mid difficulty one is that there's enough complication there that I'm struggling to pick out what to say. What do I say here? What do I, from all the things that are rattling around in the pea brain? What do I go? What do I go with? Yeah, that's a 3-town build. Disgusting. Let's just tidy up after ourselves. A little bit of blight. Except we can't actually afford to clean up the blight. Oh, wonderful. Okay, let's go with budgetary. Let's go with considering the budget. There you go. We actually even got some frenzied assault in there. Hopefully we won't need it. Okay, so we can do some shenanigans. We need to, of course, give ourselves the range boost first. Then we can prey on the builds in here. It does need the beast in there to prevent the build. And ranging hunt. So ideally we probably want to try and clear some towns from the map. And this disease is not 100% going to save us. That's just a fact about, that's just the fact of life. The disease might just get ignored by the event. The only town we can actually easily destroy is the town in here, which is kind of ridiculous because we could have just done that with the RNA anyway. Okay, it's getting scrappy. But gonna persevere though. This is my second attempt at recording a France video. Let's just destroy one of these explorers. We need to remember that we need a sacred site for Rain of Blood. And we'll leave this beast in here. Let's see what our event is. Okay, Years of Little Rain. Beast attack though. This is my favorite event. It is arguably OP. So this might just end the game now from the beast attack. Let's look at the board. Okay, so the beasts are going to do 2 damage in every land they're in. So they're going to destroy, they could destroy this town. They could destroy this town. That's the 2 fear we need to win. Let's not, so we've got the win there. So this decision's kind of relevant. Let's just ease the drought because we're kind like that. You know, who wants droughts? Hey, that's my question for you. We don't have a way of paying for this. We have no water guards down, so we will have to forget something. We'll forget Reaching Grasp. Thanks, Reaching Grasp. And we do get to add presence. Adding extra presence is wonderful. You know, Years of Little Rain is so good that it's worth, I think, thinking about. Well, it's not the only event that rewards you for having presence in with Dahan, but it's really worth thinking about this as a kind of not necessarily high tier priority when you're placing presence, but this is one of the reasons why you might want to make sure that you have presence in with blight. But here we go. So we're going to get a fear from that town kill and a fear from this town kill, and that should get us to stage 3 and the win, or Terror 3 even, because there are no cities. But yeah, I hope that was useful. Let me know if you saw any better plays. I would not be surprised if there were some misplays in there. And let me know if there's a particular mid-tier difficulty thing you want to go with. You know, that kind of thing. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you like subscribing to things. Oh yeah, any serial killers watching? There's the score. I don't know what this means. Don't really know what numbers are. But if you know what numbers are, here are some numbers. All right, bye for now.